We are here at the world famous Moon Huts with
Corinne Lightweaver.
And Corinne and I have worked together a number of times over the years because you had had breast cancer, and I curated her into a number of shows because I've always felt that her depiction of her life with breast cancer, going through the treatment, the narrative was very clear. They're really strong. First of all, they're beautiful collage pieces. So just as art on their own, they're beautiful because, breasts, lots of round shapes and knives and cutting. So even though they're about operations and everything you went through, it's beautiful work. But now you've sort of gone from that, which is a very concrete sort of thing to show artistically, to this new book. This is your new project. So why don't you talk about what's going on here?
My book is called The Psyche's Gifts, Art Making, and the Journey from Mental Illness to Mental Wellness. It's a depiction of my life beginning when I was 14, and OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, became a part of my life. And then when I was 17, depression started. The usual time for diagnosis for OCD at the time I had it, I started, was 17 years, and that really hasn't changed.
This artwork is all about mental illness, which is, to me, a lot harder to depict.
Right.
The other one's very concrete stuff. Here's my breasts. They're gone. And then this is a whole other thing. So did that lead you to this, or would this project have happened anyway because you're sort of building since you were 17?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it would have happened. I started the breast cancer work started from an art therapy group I went to. And in the 10 years before that, I had been painting and drawing. And when I was in the art therapy group, we worked with different mediums, and the first work that really depicted my feelings about my experience was collage. And I started working in collage and assemblage and made a body of work that I wanted to share with other people. And I think being vulnerable in that way allowed me to talk about something that I had a lot of shame about in my life.
So when you were growing up, you didn't talk about this depression? Because most teenagers, you always see the goth girls in their black and kids in high school. You're sort of like, oh, they're teenagers, they're depressed. But you knew what you had was different.
Well, the depression started when I was 17 and I was going to graduate from high school. So I really think of it starting in college. But obsessive compulsive disorder, I saw people on the streets clearly mentally disturbed, moving their hands around and talking to themselves, and I was desperately afraid that was going to happen to me. And I wanted to hide it from everyone. I wanted to hide it from my parents and from my friends, and I was able to do that for the longest time until my early 30s, when it sort of imploded, and then I was able to start getting treatment. I started this work as I was sort of finishing up the cancer work. And it started with a collage journal, not something that I expected to show to people. And then I started making separate art pieces, and I went back and said, this is a body of work with something I want to share in it.
So what's interesting in this work, and also with your breast cancer work, is that if you just look at the images, like some of them, okay, so this one has a skull, so that looks a little depressing, right? But this one, it's got a loving couple in it. So a lot of these look very joyous. Or some of the images, like this one has got.
Yeah, it's a little frightening, that one.
It's a little frightening, but at the same time, it's somebody jumping. There's a freedom to it. There's a beautiful landscape in the background. So even though these sort of look, there's an element of stress to them, they're also really beautiful. And so were you able to sort of see beauty at the same time you were depressed, or were you just so overwhelmed with depression that you couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't overwhelm my whole life
Yeah.
until it did.
Okay, so this one, the baby with the
The
lemur,
baby.
that's like a really happy image.
Yes, I mean, a lot of themes from my childhood appear in these. Like, I took care of rhinos. I was assistant to a zookeeper as a volunteer in high school.
Who wouldn't love that?
Exactly. So I got to take care of the lemurs and the Indian rhinos, and so they've appeared in my art and my paintings as well.
What do you want them to see from this? What kind of strength do you want them to?
I want them to not only understand the depths of mental illness, but also see the person as someone who could be their friend, someone they don't know is suffering, and if they are suffering, know that they're not alone, and to know that every person with mental illness is multifaceted, and that you can recover from mental illness. Most of them need lifelong management, but there were times where I had no hope, a number of times, and I got past that.
Do you suggest people doing art?
Yes.
Do you think it's a good way for somebody with depression to explain to the people out there, their family members and friends that are trying to understand them?
Whether they can use it to explain, it is so healing to do. I think art therapy, either with an art therapist or just working by yourself, you can learn. What I did when I did this, similar to the breast cancer, I wasn't fully aware of certain feelings, and I learned about it by doing art, drawing from my unconscious, and then later looking back at it and learning about myself.
Great. Well, thanks. Thanks for showing us the book. Thanks for doing it. And I just want to say, I think both this project, the cancer work and this work, it's so helpful. First of all, it's beautiful work. Your imagery is always so beautiful, and it's so thought out. And I think it's really helpful when we've shown it at the medical school. I know it helped the med students understand what you were going through, as I'm sure this book will. So thanks for talking to me.
Thanks so much, Ted.